let's bring in Sheriff David Clarke is with us, America's Sheriff. Also, he's a senior advisory board member of BuildTheWall.us. Sheriff Clarke, you're on the John Fredericks Show. You're live. We're in Richmond with our panel, waiting for the big open VA protest today. Great to have you with us, Sheriff.
Good morning, Sheriff.
How you folks doing?
Now that you've joined us, we're a lot better. Look, Sheriff, we talked about this with you a little bit last week. Now we got a person in Idaho arrested because her child was playing on the swings. These governors stripping away civil liberties and arresting people. In Roanoke, Virginia, on Monday, and the guy's being represented by one of our state senators here. He's a personal trainer. He was training somebody. He got arrested for opening up his doors, and he's like, I'm just trying to put food on the table so I can go to the Food Lion and buy a chicken for my family. And they cart him off to jail. Now you're going to jail because you're trying to feed your family?
Yeah, the police state is in full bloom right now, and you and I have been talking about this for a long time now, and a week goes by in between you and I talking, and at the same time, not much changes. So, here in Wisconsin, several protest rallies scheduled. I attended one last Friday. Several thousand people showed up. It was very inspiring. The governor here, you guys got a lockdown till May 8th. The governor here, I call him Kim Jong-Evers, just extended the lockdown till May 26th, and I don't think he's going to lift it on May 26th anyway.
May 26th
so
for businesses?
For business, for everybody. The complete lockdown till May 26th. So, businesses continue to die a slow death here. This governor continues to inflict human misery on the residents of the state of Wisconsin. But I am inspired across the country as more and more people are starting to stand up, rise up, as I indicated in that tweet that I got locked out of Twitter for on March 15th, where I told people, because I knew this was coming back then, what we're experiencing now. And the tweet said, take to the streets, it's time to demand your country back. And, of course, they locked me out. They said that was promoting suicide, believe it or not. So, the speech suppression continues as well. A lot of the competing evidence research being done by scientists, epidemiologists, and doctors is being suppressed if it doesn't go along with the Fauci line. These are some horrible times right now. and I'm a student of history, I never thought we'd experience what we're experiencing right now.
It's almost like Mike Watson and Martha, it's almost like a social experiment where the Democrats said, hey, why don't we just see how far we could push the American people? Let's just test this, because the next step is if we can get them to go along and just comply and submit and be like sheep, the next thing we could do is just take all their firearms away.
Well,
right?
And Sheriff Clarke and I were both inducted at the same time into the National Capital Area NRA Hall of Fame, and it was such an honor and a privilege to be inducted at the same time as you were, Sheriff, and wanted to get your thoughts on what John just said about our Second Amendment rights. And, we're here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and we have a governor who would love to take away our guns. We just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, our Second Amendment rights are always under siege, and we have to be vigilant about that 24/7, 365. But now, as close as the left is getting, they've tried before. It's the one thing that they haven't been able to accomplish. They got control of the media, and this is the stair step to a dictatorship. You control the media, and you control the narrative. You control the narrative by suppressing free speech. So they already control the media. They're suppressing. They've been suppressing language, controlling the narrative for a long time. The one thing that they have not been able to accomplish, and this is the last step, is to disarm the people. So, as long as people stand strong in terms of their Second Amendment rights and don't let them push any further. Every time I see some new legislation come out on gun restrictions, and I see people even on our side of the aisle, meaning the conservative side, that every once in a while they'll start to wilt. Well, it won't hurt if we do background check, we extend it. well, it won't hurt. No, and I keep saying no more. No more needs to be the response and the attitude when the left comes to try to threaten our Second Amendment rights.
Well, there was this radio talk show host in Virginia who was going along with that line. I forget the guy's name, but he was saying, yeah, let's do the background checks. That's fine. Let's close the loopholes. I can get in favor of that. What else nonsense did I spew out? Let's go ahead with the red flag laws, right? I went with all that. What happened, right? That's just the appetizer. Mm-hmm. So what I learned from that experience, Sheriff Clarke, and I learned the hard way, is you try to be reasonable, you try to go with them, but that's not the goal. All they want to do is open the door, pry it open, and then bust it open with a crowbar. Their objective is to take your firearms away. So any of these other laws that seem reasonable on the surface, it's not their agenda, it's not their goal. They're never going to stop there. They don't want us to have guns. Because if you look at the level, Mike Watson, did you ever think in your lifetime you would see this level of compliance and submission to politicians telling people what to do and trampling on their civil liberties? In New Jersey, somebody gets arrested for organizing a protest against the governor's policies in Trenton, and they find her and lock her up. I mean, this is like this is what happens in China. This is what happens at the CCP or the KGB did this, or one of the other totalitarian regimes. Did you ever think in your lifetime you would see this? And nobody's pushing back.
No, I can't say that I thought I would see it in my lifetime, but I've always feared that we would see it in our lifetime, because this is something that's been underway for a century. I mean, it's been easing in since going back to the Wilson and even prior to that days. And everything from the 17th Amendment and all, these are all efforts to take and give more centralized control of government over people's lives. Now, for so long it's been, socialism on the Democrat side has been, how dare you call us that? And now they're running. That's on the front of their campaign flyers, and it's so people have become more accepting of this, and the media playing into the fact, just like they are with people like us talking about we should open up business. They attack people who raise the flag on these, and it makes people fearful to come out and speak. Or, you know what, I just don't want to be tagged with that, or I don't want to get involved anymore. And so these things happen. The complacency sets in, and then you end up with an election like we had last November, and you take over the House of Delegates and the Senate with these progressives, and with sweeping legislation overnight, it's impacted our lives in a way that we feared, but thought maybe would never happen in our lifetimes.
Mike, you were in the Virginia General Assembly for many years, and on Lobby Day, how many guns are here in the oldest legislative body? How many guns are here?
Including mine?
Including yours?
A lot.
Thousands?
Yes, thousands of guns.
Thousands.
Yeah.
Has there ever been an incident?
Never been an incident.
And in fact, John and I just did a show here at the rally here in Richmond.
8-hour show.
8-hour show.
50,000 people.
50,000 people, and we were here the entire time. 50,000 people. There were all kinds of guns. People from all over came. People drove 8-10 hours to be here and more. I never felt safer before in my life. I was out there interviewing people on the street. It was amazing. And so, and I also interviewed a Black Panther. There's a Black Panther there. There are about 3 Black Panthers. And, at the end of the day, gun rights equals freedom. And, this issue, it crosses party lines. I mean, there are maybe not diehard Democrats, but there are some moderate Democrats that I talked to that were there as well. And they said, listen, I may not agree with you that, they're like, Martha, you're pro-life. I'm not pro-life. But when it comes to my guns, nobody's taking away my guns.
Hey, I gotta read this text here from House of Delegates member Millennial Emily Brewer, listening to us. Great text, Emily. Thank you for tuning in. She says she's on her way up here, obviously, for the General Assembly one-day session. Hang with us, Sheriff. Emily says, John, what people have to remember as a millennial is that we have an entire generation of young people that have never heard the media truly negative towards socialism. My parents taught me about socialism, how bad it was. Think about how many did not. This is so true. She goes on to say that's how Bernie Sanders rose to prominence with his socialist ideas to a generation of younger Americans. And now what this pandemic has done is it's taught younger Americans two things: do exactly what the government says, don't question, and if you do question, you go to jail, right? Don't question, don't protest. They say stay at home, stay at home. They say put on gloves, don't go to jail. And then look to the government to solve it. Send you a check, buy you food, get you food stamps, get you unemployment, stay home, shelter, turn out the lights and the blinds, do exactly what the government says. I mean, this is an entire generation of people, at Emily's saying, her generation, that has no other baseline except that, Mark.
That's right. That's exactly right. That's right.
She's spot on.
You know, I have some friends that are Cuban Americans, and when they saw everything being shut down, well, on the one hand, they understood that initially we were looking at millions and millions of Americans being impacted, so they understood that. But at the same time, they said, when our nation is completely shut down, like it is now, and they're seeing the lines of people. Did you see the lines of people that for the first time are going to food banks across our country?
Yeah.
They said this reminds us of what we experienced in Cuba.
Right.
I mean, think about those words. These are Cuban Americans.
Or what's going on right now in Venezuela.
Correct. Yes.
I mean, it's
I
unbelievable.
think that if I can get in here, I think
Yes,
that
please.
text is spot on, because what we're talking about is an entire generation, and it isn't just millennials. Some of these are the Gen Xers and some other groups of people. They've been conditioned into compliance, and it's been done through the education system. That's been going on. That indoctrination to abject servility to the government has been going on for decades, and some of us, were asleep at the switch. We knew what was going on, but didn't say too much. I'm a little disappointed in some of my fellow Americans. I said some, not all, that they rolled over so easily on this thing, and they've fallen prey to all of the buzz phrases, right? Out of an abundance of caution. Well, we can't take risks. Well, we have to save every life. All this nonsense that when it's uttered by this movement on the left here, people are too many people just nodding their heads. Oh yeah, out of an abundance of caution. No, this country's been through this before with the seasonal flu, with H1N1, and you've had a large number of cases. It has never overwhelmed the hospital system, and it's caused a lot of deaths in a lot of people. It's part of life. These things are going to come through. They're going to happen. And it's a reminder to me that the most dominant species on Earth is not human beings. It's microorganisms. And so because that is the fact, that is a scientific fact about microorganisms, sometimes it's going to sweep through. And, another thing that they were throwing out, this flatten the curve. There's no curve. All right, they come up with these phrases, and then everybody starts to parrot them. And now the new buzzword is testing. We have to test. We have to test everybody. I don't want the government testing anybody. I'd leave that to the medical field. That's between my doctor and me, whether I want to take a test.
Yes.
And if they come up with a vaccine, and they may not, if they come up with a vaccine, that's between my doctor and I as to whether I'm going to do it. I do not want the government ordering people to take a vaccine.
Sheriff, how much of a part of this new testing, and that's what you're exactly right. You hear that every news channel that they've got covering
Phase
now.
one, phase two, phase three.
Governors talking, but particularly Democrat governors. We have to have more testing. How much of that do you think is related to? They know that's something that's going to take a long time, which further delays this, which has a further impact on our economy, which ultimately further impacts the November election.
It has everything to do with that.
Go ahead. You got 1 minute. Go ahead, Sheriff.
It has everything to do with that. First of all, they don't even know what they're testing for. They don't have a standard for it. You can get a lot of false positives with these tests. Also, these tests can miss what they're looking for. And so the fact they throw this word, test, and everybody now is saying, oh, yeah, we got to test. Oh, we can't open up until we test. No, we need to open up now, and we'll let the medical community deal with this thing like we always have and keep the government out of it.
Sheriff Clarke, you're spot on, as always. I don't even know what the testing means, because if we had 350 million tests, I could get tested today. I could go out and shake hands with a friend of mine by mistake, because that's what I've been doing for 60 years, get the virus the next day. I mean, I would have to get tested every day in perpetuity. God, they have one objective in mind: tank the economy, crash the economy, wipe out small business owners, shatter their lives, shatter their families. They all voted for Trump anyway. Heck, Sheriff, it's better than the gulag. John Fredericks Radio Network. They only have one objective, Sheriff, and that's beat Trump in 2020. That's it. That's all I can see now. I got to go. John Fredericks Radio Network.